Hi everyone, this is Mr. Mike for the Mechanicsburg Learning Center with another episode of Dino-A-Day. This is episode number 35, and today we look at a sauropod, which is another fancy way for saying long neck. Now, this is what you guys are used to seeing when we talk about long necks and sauropods. You're used to seeing big long necks, sometimes long tails, sometimes shorter tails, but pretty much smooth skin, small heads, big bellies. Okay? Well, this is an animal that is called Saltasaurus. It has nothing to do with flavoring your food, so there's no such thing as Pepperdon or Oreganosaurus or Paprikasaurus or anything like that. But Saltasaurus was discovered in the 1920s, mistakenly named. Mistakenly, they thought it was something completely different. So as I said, this is what we thought sauropods looked like, and for the most part, we were right. So when this discovery was made in the 1920s, they thought it was one of these. Why would they think it would be one of these? They didn't have much of the animal, they just had a couple of things up here they called osteoderms, okay? And when you're writing poetry about dinosaurs, see if you can rhyme with osteoderms. It's pretty tough. So this is an ankylosaur, okay? Ankylosaurus to be exact. And since they found these interesting things we called osteoderms or scoots or just really cool bumps, we thought that's what we had. However, Saltasaurus turns out looks like this. Little bit different than your typical sauropod because of the cool little osteoderms, scoots, and bumps that they found on its back. Now, Saltasaurus lived about 80 to maybe 65 million years ago. Saltasaurus means Salta lizard. It was discovered in the capital city of Salta in the country of Argentina. Now, I say it wasn't very big. It was only about 40 feet long. That's still a pretty big animal, still 10 feet bigger than Triceratops and Stegosaurus. But for a sauropod that grew to these gigantic sizes and amazing lengths, 40 feet was not that special. In fact, it was considered a titanosaur, which was the big guys, but one of the smaller ones. So it was really cool. It had this really cool stuff on its back, but it was only 40 feet long. Now, why was it so small? Well, we think that at one point that area of the world was cut off from other parts of the world, either through plate tectonics or whatever. And as a result, animals actually evolved downward in terms of size. The reason being, when you have a limited area and limited resources and limited food supplies, the biggest animals don't have enough to eat. So they're the ones that end up getting selected out, and the smaller ones that did not have to eat as much could flourish. And that's maybe the story behind why Saltasaurus was a bit smaller. Yeah, the present day dinosaurs agree with that theory. So the thing that made Saltasaurus so unique was the fact that it was the first armored sauropod ever discovered. First one ever discovered. And it has led scientists to now take a look at Diplodocus and Argentinosaurus and all these other big titanosaurs and say, perhaps some of these other ones, since we don't have skin, maybe some of the other ones had osteoderms or these really interesting nodules. The reason they were probably there is pretty fascinating. Yes, they were there because some of the carnivores that wanted to attack these animals would look at that, try to bite into these osteoderms and say, this isn't worth it. When I say osteoderm, think of a present-day alligator or crocodile, those things that, those bumps on their back. Okay, so that's what an osteoderm is called, or what it is, and that's another word for it is a scoot. Okay, so we think that it was a means of protection. But interestingly, when they took a look at Saltasaurus, they discovered that his hindquarters, you see how this is kind of rounded. They describe his body as kind of barrel-shaped, and he had a nice booty on him. And they believe that one of the other theories is that these scoots and these osteoderms actually helped the animal if it had to spend a little time in the water. Now, we know that the giant sauropods spending all their time in the water, that's a theory that's gone by the wayside, and that just doesn't hold any weight. But we do think that maybe Saltasaurus spent a little bit of time in the water, and if he did, these osteoderms would have helped him synthesize the carbon monoxide that would build up in your system. And so there was actually some sort of scientific explanation as to why it would have osteoderms, not just for protection. We found some eggs recently, and the eggs may in fact turn out to be little baby Saltasaurus eggs, because when we looked inside at the embryo, they had just the beginnings of this. They were definitely not ankylosaur eggs. They were sauropod eggs, which tend to be rounder, and the embryos actually had the beginnings of these little tiny bumps on its back. So they're hypothesizing right now that they discovered Saltasaurus eggs. Now, Saltasaurus has a second name, just like every dinosaur, as again, the example would be Tyrannosaurus rex. Rex is its second name. Second name for Saltasaurus, Saltasaurus loricatus. Loricatus. So it means Salta lizard, which is from Argentina, Salta in Argentina, so that's why they named it that. And loricatus means protected by small armored plates. It's Latin for protected by small armored plates, so that's why it got that second name. It was named in 1980 by a famous paleontologist, Jose Bonaparte, and his colleague, Jamie Powell. So we know that it had osteoderms. We know that it was discovered in the mid-70s, 1975, 1977, named a couple of years later, but it was actually discovered years earlier in the 1920s, but they didn't know that they had a Saltasaurus. They thought they had, remember, an Ankylosaurus because of all the stuff on its back. So they liken its hindquarters that I mentioned earlier, the booty, to a hippo, kind of rounded. And we know that hippos enjoy running, walking, and swimming. So maybe Saltasaurus did spend a little time in the water. Here's our poem for today, written by me, Mr. Mike, and presented for you in cooperation with the Mechanicsburg Learning Center. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for finding them on YouTube at Mr. Mike Sgrignoli. We upload them every day. And please subscribe. Saltasaurus. The Saltasaurus did not get that name because she's salty. So if you thought that logically, your logic would be faulty. They named her that since Salta was the place she was discovered, and much of her anatomy has lately been recovered. She lived in Argentina long ago, not very recent. Learned lots about her because her fossil's pretty decent. She was a sauropod, but nothing like the ones before her. She had unique advantages, so we could not ignore her. First off, she wasn't ultra-huge, but still she was enormous. And this we learned from folks we trust to tell us and inform us. She measured only 40 feet. Not bad, but not impressive. Not close to some titanosaurs whose length was so excessive. Her back had some protruding bones and scoots just like a gator. But since their name is tough to rhyme with, I'll just tell you later. Besides them looking nice, it seems these bumps were pretty useful at keeping other hungry beasts from biting, which is crucial. The sauropod was first to show the science world the theory that bumps were on some sauropods, though some folks still were leery. Initially, they thought she might be Ankylosaurus. That's why it took so long for them to name it Saltasaurus. But that's what happens sometimes when you find something surprising, and sometimes it takes years and years of ceaseless analyzing. And so the Saltasaurus should be prized and celebrated, since it was her who showed us where those bumps could be located. The Saltasaurus discovered in Salta, Argentina, with the really cool osteoderms, which I refuse to rhyme with in a poem, otherwise known as scoots or really cool bumps. So, the Saltasaurus, Dino-A-Day, episode number 35 for the Mechanicsburg Learning Center. Once again, thanks for watching. This is Mr. Mike. We do it every day live on Facebook, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can watch it on the Facebook pages and also catch it later on YouTube at Mr. Mike Sgrignoli. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.